I'd just like to say that when Oscar and Lois started going together, that Oscar was the older brother I always wanted. And I've always looked up to him as my older brother. To me, they've been role models. And as I watched them bring their family up, I used to think, God, if I could only bring my family up and see them all stay in the church like theirs did. God has honored that request of mine. But they had such a wonderful family. They're still a wonderful family, and I'm so glad to see them here tonight. And how many people married on the 50th wedding anniversary have the mother at that celebration? I'm so glad my mother is here tonight. We'll try to sing the song that I sang at their wedding together.
The next event on tonight's program is the, there it is the cutting of the cake. And sis, you've done a lot of cakes in the last 50 years, and they tell me it's just appropriate if you cut this one too. So if you would, make your way to the cake, and you can take Oscar with you also.
Everybody join us. I
said they went to a fight and a hockey game broke out. Well, we had the privilege of going to a minister's dinner in Vermont, and a board meeting broke out. Amen. And it's just good to be here with Brother and Sister Chandler. Amen. And all their fine folk and their fine family. I know some of them. I don't know you all. But it's our privilege to be here. And this couple have contributed greatly to our district. I've known them from Central New England District in times in the past. I had the opportunity, like I said, we just had a board meeting. I had the opportunity to write the minutes for that board meeting. Brother Howe asked me to do that. So Brother Chandler, I'll give you a copy of it. But Brother Chandler is our district secretary-treasurer. A lot of work. And I was thinking as I was writing these minutes, I've read some of the minutes that Brother Chandler has written. And I remember one specifically, Brother Howe from time to time will ask one of us to, in devotions before we get going on the board meeting, we do try and keep it on a spiritual note. And he asked me one time to open it up with some kind of devotion. And I don't even remember what the text was I used or the scripture or anything. And I got the minutes back and I read it and I said that? And I thought, Brother Chandler really knows how to make that. I said, I'd like to hire this guy and have him go through my notes when I preach because he can really embellish these things to make them look good. But that's my perspective. That may not have been everybody's. Also, I think Sister Chandler, she wrote an article, I don't know how many years ago, a couple of years back, wrote an article in the Reflections magazine. Excellent article. It moved me. It touched me. I read it and I thought, well, we have some talented people in our district, and these folk are definitely among them, and they have labored unselfishly. They've given, Brother Chandler's been up all hours of the night. I think sometimes he does better than some of us younger ones, and I say that reservedly because I'm almost 50. And but he does real good. He carries all of his bags around. He's got all kinds of things packed away. And oh yeah, one time we had a board meeting, and Brother Howe, and we'll just leave it at that, made a comment one time that we were going to continue on in our board meeting, and Brother Chandler said, well, something to the effect, well, you go ahead and do that, I'll see you later, I'm going to eat. Amen. But this couple is a fine couple, and it's our privilege to have them in our district, and I really mean that. I just told our church the other day, I said when I was a boy growing up, we didn't call my neighbor Jane if that was her name. If it was a mom or dad, we called them by their first, we called them Mr. or Mrs. And I think we have a lack of respect, a lot of lack of respect in our society. And I told my children, they never called so-and-so down the street by their first name. They were always Mr. and Mrs. And I think respect is something that our society needs more of. And these folk definitely deserve the respect of this district. And we got together and thought, well, we'd like to do something for them. They've been in this district ever since it's been a district. And they've been functioning in it in some shape or form on a level of helping out. Brother Chandler, I said, is a district secretary-treasurer. Sister Chandler is on ladies committee, honorary member of the ladies committee, and gives her input and just puts a lot of time and effort into there. I know Sister Chandler, there's been many times when you wondered where maybe Brother Chandler was. But we thank you for allowing him to be the part of the district that he was. And we thought, well, the least we could do was to somehow honor them as a district. And so that's what we want to do tonight. And we'd like them both to come up here, if you would. Judging by the weight of this one, I think I got the right one. Amen. I'm going to put it here on the pulpit. Amen. You can go ahead and open it. This is on behalf of the New Hampshire, Vermont district. We appreciate you folks and love you very dearly. And they are kind folk. In fact, Brother Chandler, the other day when we went to conference, I was, parking a car cost about $100 for a week in the airport. Brother Chandler said, "We go ahead and park it in my driveway." And I said, "Well, you don't have a problem with that?" "No, I don't have a problem with that." And he said, so I went ahead and did it. It saved me about $100. But that wasn't good enough for Brother Chandler. He gave me a note of all the taxis to call in town, and they get from his house to the airport and all that. And we just appreciate these folks in many, many ways. And this is just a small token from my district for your time and effort and all your energy you put into the district. And go ahead and open it.
We didn't expect anything.
I
So it used to be an old proverb. He used to say, "Blessed is he Blessed is he that expected nothing. Then he won't be disappointed what he gets.
Happy young people, this is Brother Chandler. Chandler, being the district secretary-treasurer, he got a new tape recorder for the district meetings here a while back, and that's not what that's for. Yeah, man, in fact, Brother Chandler, if you bring that, they'll probably get reprimanded. But I remember looking at that, he's like a little kid with something new. There's a lot of buttons on this thing, and I can tell already that he'll figure it out. Yeah, he's a man that can figure this thing out. But we just want you to know from the district that we appreciate you folks and love you very much. God bless you both.
Mary? Miss Mary? It's a Bose radio and CD player. I've read it on it. Because about a year ago, her children got together and gave her one of these, I guess, I don't know if it's like this, but a Bose CD player for a Christmas present, and she hasn't got done telling about it yet. Thank you.
Them, but we felt that they had a lot of friends and other family who would want to help us to honor them, and we really appreciate every one of you who has come to help us to do that. I have something here that I just do better reading. Writing, putting it together ahead of time and reading it, so I hope you'll excuse me for doing that. I'm not really good at off-the-cuff stuff. So I have some things that I've put together that I just called I Will Never Forget. Some memories. I will never forget Daddy coming home to the apartment where we lived in Connecticut, all excited and saying, I got a job. And in my 3-year-old mind, trying to grasp the concept of what a job was, so I could be happy about it too. I'll never forget my mother improvising a cardboard box so I could go sliding after a snowstorm at the house where we lived in Connecticut. I remember when Daddy tried to surprise Mama with a birthday cake, and my brothers and I went to her and said, Daddy made you a birthday cake, but we're not going to tell because this is secret. Right after I said that, I knew that I had done something wrong. I'll never forget sitting around the old stereo cabinet at the house in Jonesport, listening to songs like It Is No Secret and My God Is Real, or singing along with Daddy strumming his guitar to What a Day That Will Be. Never forget Mama setting up the dining room with groceries borrowed from the kitchen and the ironing board as a counter so we could play store. Fisher Price could never compete. I'll never forget Daddy's potatoes on the stove, fudge and molasses cookies. Really, ask him. And yes, of course, potato chips with milk.
Yeah.
Should I mention pickled pig's feet? I'll never forget trips to the library in Norway, the house in Norway. No bathroom, a metal wash tub for baths, and an outhouse in the barn, but we remember it as though it were a mansion. I remember services in the living room, Sunday school on the porch, Daddy recording for radio services starting with Buy the Truth and Sell It Not, from Proverbs 23:23. Mama playing the old player piano, not just the piano rolls that came with it, but songs like Silver Wings. We have a copy of that on the memory table tonight. I remember the guests in the potato bin, garden vegetable suppers. I thought we had them because we liked fresh garden vegetables, not because the budget was limited. I remember the fire in the barn and my concern for the safety of my new baby sister. I remember moving to Grammy and Grampy Howe's house when I was 8 years old when Daddy came to Manchester to help as assistant pastor. We had some fun times, and I'll never forget the Cookie Man. I remember my parents giving when it seemed there wasn't much to give. After Daddy became pastor in Manchester, I remember him going to help an unfortunate family with some groceries, even though they appeared to need them less than we did. It was okay, though, because God gave back to us in too many ways to list. I'll never forget the sounds of the pressure cooker on Saturday evenings, and we were reminded this weekend, or a couple of nights ago, of the time that the beans went to the ceiling. New England baked beans and homemade bread. Black raspberry ice cream at Glendon's. I remember Daddy starting up the Bible quizzing program to get the youth involved in learning and studying Scripture, trips to regional and national tournaments, and Mama trying to keep up with him at the scorekeeper's table. I'll never forget his painstaking efforts to be fair in his duties as foul judge. I remember him transporting us to youth services in Hudson week after week on Friday nights so we could get an opportunity to be with other young people in the church. I'll never forget Mama saying, "I guess it's just God's figuring," when the budget didn't balance on paper, but somehow the bills were paid and there was always food on the table. I remember Mama and Daddy telling us in so many ways that they loved us, and then, after our brother Ronnie passed away, feeling like they didn't say it enough. They put it in words more often now, and I guess we all do, but there was never even a slight doubt in our minds whether or not we were loved. I believe either of them would have given their life if necessary for any of us, and that takes real love. I remember times after being married with a family of my own when I faced difficult circumstances, being encouraged by the memories of how God provided for my parents when they trusted Him, and discovering that He would do the same for me and my family. I'll never forget hearing Daddy call my name as he prayed before going off to work in the morning, and I'll always remember Mama praying with me at my bedside when I was afraid. I'll never forget one night a few years ago when several of us had gone to the house to see Daddy when he was very sick. He had come through the initial battle with an illness that had threatened to take him from us, but was suffering complications again. Since he was too sick to come down when we went upstairs to pray with him. As we laid hands on him and began to pray, I felt the vibration from his voice as he joined us. There was a power and strength in his prayer, even in his physical weakness, and it seemed that while we were trying to pray God's blessing on him, the blessing was coming back to us. I was not born into a wealthy family by the world's standards, but I am rich beyond words. I have been blessed with caring, loving, giving parents. I found a card from Mama this year that just seems to say it all. It says something like this: "The older I get, the more people tell me how I remind them of you." That's the nicest compliment I can think of. My parents have been great role models for me. If I can do half as well, it will be a tremendous accomplishment. Thanks, Mama and Daddy, for truly loving, caring, and giving of yourselves. That is something I will never forget. Now I'm going to try to sing a song that I wrote for this occasion. My parents have said that they really weren't interested in renewing their vows. They made their vows a long time ago. They've never broken them. They never intend to break them. I don't know if I can remember the little saying that Mama told me about this week. Love is not in the making of promises, but in the keeping of them. So they made their vows a long time ago, and they still continue to keep them. And I think that if they could, I think this song says how they feel about each other. It's written in the first person, like one of them talking to the other, and I think this is the way that you feel about each other. choose once again. I choose you for my lifelong friend. If I could choose again, I'd still say I do. Is that how you feel? That's what I thought. I'm going to ask Stephanie and Justin to come. They have some things they want to say. When I was writing this, I was thinking of all the memories, had all these memories of being over at Grammy and Grandpa's house and all the things that we used to do over there. And my list just kept getting longer and longer and longer. And I did cut quite a lot of it out, actually. But these are a lot of my memories on paper. Grammy's little pretty girl is what she has called me since I have been old enough to remember. Her and Grandpa both seem to have always had their ways of making each one of us grandchildren feel individually special and important to them. There to see us as newborns, then as we walk, talk, and begin to get into everything around us. There for our parents as we begin to drive them crazy. I remember pretending we were at the supermarket. Grammy would pull out all of her canned goods, other non-perishable items, and basically anything else tangible to a 5-year-old without getting eaten, open, ripped, or broke. We'd pretend to scan all of our items, and then we'd bag them. We played restaurant, too. Maybe it was just a way of getting us to eat, but we had fun anyway. There was a sign that hung on the wall. It read, "If Mama says no, ask Grandma." So many times I debated to see whether or not it would work. Hide and seek was always a favorite game. Their home had seemed so big and so adventurous to me. So many pieces of furniture and so many big things to hide in, like the bathtub or the hamper. I remember playing the piano so loud that Grandpa would stop whistling. Then I'd have to find something else to do for a while, like putting on Grammy's gray snow boots and walking all around the house in them, or venturing into Grandpa's office and playing with all the stuff on his desk, pushing the buttons on his address book and watching as the pages would flip back and forth, then changing the numbers on that little orange thing with the feet. I used to play with Grammy's roll of stamps, the kind where you pull the stamps out of that can with the slot in it. One time I pulled them almost completely out, but then I realized I didn't know how to get them back in. Sometimes we took the cases off a couple of pillows. We'd slide them over our legs, stumble to the top of the stairs, and on our bottoms bump down every step. It's amazing how much speed you can gain by the time you hit that bottom step. The banister was fun, too. Grammy got upset every time we slid down it, but when she wasn't around, we'd jump on, slide down, and hope that this wouldn't be the time it finally gave way. My grandparents used to have a dog. His name was Midnight. All of us loved Midnight, and I think he loved us, too. In comparison to us, he was huge, like a pony. In fact, we kind of treated him like that. He never seemed to mind when we tried to get on him and ride around the house. Midnight was not supposed to be allowed in the living room. We tried to get him to come in anyway. If he did come in, it was only for a second. Then he'd run back out. I think he knew that if he was caught, it'd be him to get in trouble and not us. The living room was a great place for shocking. We'd take off our shoes, turn the light off, and slide our feet around without picking them up. Carefully, we'd select the best object for a big shock, something metal. Rubbing our feet against the rug one final time, we'd position ourselves and slowly reach one finger toward the object, wincing as if we'd already touched it. Zap. Intently, we'd watch as the blue spark would emit from the tip of our finger, connecting us to the metal object. Then we'd do it all over again. Other times, it was more fun to find the closest kin and share with them our shocking experience. We were always told if we were hungry, we knew where the kitchen was. I don't believe this was a rude gesture in any sense, but merely a way of making it known to us that we were to feel at home with our grandparents. In exercising this, I once realized that those little silver balls used to decorate cakes with, they don't taste very good. Among my own favorite snacks were crackers, like the ones Grandpa puts into soup, peanut butter and fluff sandwiches and white bread cut into boats, and of course, macaroni and cheese. Christmas has probably been our favorite time to be over at Grammy and Grandpa's. A house full of people, the smell of homemade bread, presents, singing the 12 days of Christmas, and a hope that Grandpa would once again share with us his can of mixed nuts. I still wish I were the only one who liked the cashews. With so many people in one spot, it became easier and much more fun to play our games, like lining up all of the chairs in one in back of the other, pretending we had made a train. We'd sit on the chairs and act as if we were cruising down the railroad tracks. Other times we'd go downstairs and take turns on the exercise bike, seeing who could go the fastest. We may even settle down a bit and read our favorite books. Grammy and Grandpa had a whole drawer dedicated to our kids' books. Anytime we wanted, we could go in and take one. I'd say Laura was the most active reader among us. She became interested in books at such a young age. We could always tell when she had been reading a book. There may be a page missing or a few added pictures, but without a doubt, she would always leave her trademark.
Way to go, Laura.
At least one corner of the book would be gone missing, with only teeth marks left to identify she had been there. I think it may have caused a bit of irritation among us at the time, but I'm sure we've all moved on since then. There are not many people who can say they have had such fond memories. I'm certainly privileged to be among those few. I remember Grammy realizing me and Heidi's passion for music. She would show us how to pronounce our words correctly so people would understand when we sing and how to smile. She would always give us a chance to exercise our young talents. Her and Grandpa came to several of my concerts in school. I remember how it felt to see them sitting in the crowd with my parents and the need I had felt to make them proud. I believe, however, that me just being there had already made them proud enough. I remember my wedding day, of course, a time I shouldn't ever forget. My father was walking me down the aisle. I looked towards my grandmother, and as promised, she was standing there, holding a camera and mouthing to me the words, "Grammy's little pretty girl." I think of Grandpa being in the hospital. I was too young to fully understand what was going on, but somewhere, my grandparents had instilled something in their children and in their grandchildren. The knowledge of someone who loved us and heard us, someone who would take care of any situation, and God always has. We have learned a lot from our grandparents, just by watching, listening, observing them, and even more by hearing what others have had to say about them. It is not everyone that has such a large reputation, a reputation of loving, caring, and giving everything they can to the work of God. My grandparents are genuine. They do not act this way only when they are with us. The life you see is really the life they live. They have been through hard times, which may seem to have been disguised, but really they haven't been. Grammy and Grandpa don't want the attention of everyone, and they wouldn't ever ask for your pity. If they asked for anything, it would be for your prayers and maybe a visit from time to time. How I will cherish the many, many memories they have created for me, the laughable times and the serious times alike, the times of teaching wrong from right and the importance of having God in our lives. I aspire to being Grammy and Grandpa's little pretty girl, not necessarily in any physical sense, but more importantly, in being as pretty and as beautiful as they have been to me.
I didn't do any notes tonight because I knew if I did, I'd never shut up. Because I can talk in between notes and between lines as much as anybody else can, and then more. I'd just like to speak for a minute. I haven't been in this family and privileged near long enough, but I do feel like I've known you for a lot longer because Stephanie always talks about you and tells me all the stuff she's been able to do. And then like looking around tonight and remembering things that I've heard a lot of these people say and then me talk to them about, I felt like I've known you a lot longer than I have. Also, I'd like to say that you guys have been an example for me, guiding me and helping, inspiring me for my dreams and my hopes and what I want to accomplish with my life. Both of you, Grampy, you in the ministry, and also you, Grammy, by your side. I believe that not only have you guys done your jobs, but you guys have both taken them seriously and literally, being a man of God and wife of a man of God. And I feel like you've treated all of us like your children and the children of God. And like in Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. I feel like you've done that with all of us. Everybody here must, at one point, have heard you speak to them about God at one time. And that is probably the most powerful thing anybody can say about anybody. Whether or not somebody said something nice to anybody or done anything nice for them, but when you can share with them God to everybody that you have ever been able to know that's in this room tonight, and many thousands more people, that's amazing. And I thank you for being able to do that, be an example for me. And also I was thinking back of the service we just had at our home church a couple nights ago when we sang the song The Anchor Holds. And something came to me. That song shows us God as being the anchor. But then I thought, the anchor can be raised and lowered. And I know God can come into our lives. And if we push him away, he will leave. But God is always there. But what he actually does is he puts other people, he uses us to do stuff for people. And I think that he's put you as an anchor, not only for this family and the church here, but also this district. And I'd like to thank you because we can always look back at you and see what you were able to do, how you were able to reach people. And I'd like to thank you for that.
Well, I got a few more notes. Thank you, sit down. I guess everybody's already said everything I wanted to say. There's not much left. But I do want to say a couple things. Boy, this don't have much on it. Yeah, must have got the wrong letter. Oh, I found it. Good. Hey, Nathan, I got it over here. Okay. Well, Mother, Dad, you don't mind me calling you Mother and Dad. They've had me for 21 years. They've had me longer than that. They've had me since I was 21 years old. I've been married into the family for 30 years. We just celebrated our 30th anniversary. And thank you. And I contribute that to my mother and father-in-law because they gave me the best thing that they really had. I know they disagree because there's a lot of them in that family. But I feel as though I did pretty well. And my sister-in-law will contribute to that. She'll say, yes, I did very well. She's a great wife. She's a good mother. And because I have a chance to have her, I also get my mother and father-in-law. And they have been really good to me. And I just want to make mention of a couple of things. This anniversary thing that we're having today, Cheryl opened the book the other day, one of the folders that she has, and you know, we've been planning this thing for 4 years. 4 long years. Man, can you remember that? And she started making some phone calls. Well, what do you think? What do you think? Well, that's the start of it all. 4 years, that's a long time. But I would say it's worth it, wouldn't you? Yes, I would say it's worth it. And Dad, Mother, I want to make mention of one special thing that really happened at one occasion in my life. We had a chance to go to General Conference one year to Tennessee. And my mother and father-in-law said, we'd like to go with you. And I said, oh, great. So we got the motorhome all together, and the time came, so we struck off for Tennessee. We had an awesome trip. I mean, it was just a real good trip. All the way down there, no troubles at all, just zoom right down there. We had a good time at conference, and we had Dad sitting in the front seat, you know, navigating everything. And I tell you what, he has got the best directions. He can say, you need to go over in this lane, Peter. Okay, get right over in the lane. And you need to be over in this lane. Yeah, okay, I need to go over in that lane. And it's just, he is nothing but the best, really. Thank you, Dad. Appreciate that. And I really do. And you know something? You have a daughter that's just like you. She does the same thing. Honey, you need to be over here. Honey, you need to be over there. Yes, dear. Yes, dear. Every good husband should know how to say that. And guess what? You have to know how to say it. It's either yes, dear, or it's yes, dear, or it's yes, dear. And it depends on how you say it, you get results. You don't say it right, you don't get much results. So up to the 30 years now, I've learned how to say it. And every once in a while she says to me, you didn't say it right. So I'm still learning. And then we had an occasion while we was on that trip. On the way back, it was about, probably 100 miles or so out of Nashville, and we broke down. Well, you spend 3 or 4 days in the motorhome and 5 of us in there with your mother and father-in-law, and you're in trouble. Boy, you get awful quiet. I'll tell you what, I had him for my whole self, and I had mother and father-in-law just for us. We had one-to-one attention. Because usually when we go to a family function, we're all home, I just have to sit around and laugh with everybody else, and I don't get the full attention. Everybody else gets it except for me. But this time I had captive audience. Yay! And it was the best. It really was. And I really enjoyed. I didn't so much to pay the bill, although I was really glad that they were there, because the guy had no lift. He didn't take credit cards. He didn't take a check. And we had one alternative, and either fix meals for a long time or give them cash. And mother and father had some traveler's checks, and we was certainly glad to have those. And we paid the bill and went on our way, and we made it home in time to go to work. And one other thing I might want to mention is my oldest son is here. And he was the first grandchild. So, yay! I had the first one. And then guess what? I had the second one. Hey, Nathan, Kevin. That's it. I always go down to the line before I get the right one. That's just normal. What's that? I'm sorry, but I was responsible. Yes. And then Kevin got married. So he was the first one that got married. So this was your first grandchild to get married and have a wife. Imagine that. Yeah, that is in order. Yeah, that's right, Kevin. Thank you. And I appreciate my mother and father-in-law very much. They have been very good to me, and I really didn't learn how to really appreciate them until about 10 years after I was married. I don't know why I waited so long. I finally grew up, I guess. I always called him Brother Chandler, Sister Chandler. Well, I finally come to my senses, and I said, well, you know, if I probably called her Mother and Dad, I probably would do a whole lot better. So one day I says, well, I'm going to try it and see what happens. So one day we was outside, I forgot what the occasion was, and I called him Dad, and it just seems like I've been able to be probably the most favorite son-in-law that he's got. How you doing, Brian? I know I'm going to reap what I sowed. That's what I thought. But I've always said I was a favorite son-in-law, the most favorite son-in-law, until Brian came along, and I had to step aside because he became favorite son-in-law, and now we fight over it a little bit. So I guess Mother and Dad, I guess you can choose over who's the favorite. I hope we're even. Thank you. I'm even. So you ain't got nothing to stand on, Brian. Thanks, Mother and Dad. And I love you both, and I really appreciate you both. And I'd like to go on another 50 years. My wife and I have a little presentation we'd like to make them.